According to a recent study from the American Psychological Association, 82% of individuals belonging to Generation Z, which are aged 18 to 25, and 81% of millennials, aged 26 to 43, cited money as a significant source of stress. However, it's for a reason you would not expect. Hear me out. Imagine that your long-awaited payday has arrived. Finally, all your hard work is paid off and you can reap the rewards. You deserve to treat yourself to something special after working so hard. Maybe you'll indulge in a delicious meal, catch up with some friends over drinks, or even splurge on that new clothing item you've been eyeing. Whatever you decide to do, you know that you've earned it and you want to enjoy yourself a little bit, right? Stop! If this is you after getting paid, you'll find yourself broke or struggling to maintain control over your finances and relationships. This is a real source of stress and anxiety, and unfortunately, it's a situation that many people find themselves in. Instead of following the same old routine, make sure to follow this 7-step payday plan to gain full control over your finances and achieve financial freedom and independence. Surprisingly, 95% of people can't even pass the first step. As Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors and money managers, once said, "If you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need." In other words, spending beyond your means can have serious consequences in the long run. Study and follow the plan explained in this video and see how much more secure and empowered you feel when it comes to your money. Step number 1. Put cash into a checking account. For some people, they don't have their checks or money from work directly deposited into their checking account, but this can cause some serious troubles as you can easily lose sight of your money. Let's break it down. As a start, the money you get is always a net income. The reason that the government is already taking money from you before you receive it is through taxes. Secondly, you may have a retirement fund like a 401k or a Roth, which will be automatically paid before you receive your funds. What you're left with is your net income, also called net cash. Now, the problem shows up when you receive this money in physical form and have to deposit it yourself. It can be hard to keep up with as you have to go to the bank, deposit the check, and it's a huge hassle. However, we cannot stress the importance of this step better than Nate O'Brien in this clip.
It goes into our checking account. Now this is going to be our hub for everything that happens, okay? So our paycheck goes into our checking account, and like I said earlier, this is as far as most people get. This is as far as 90% of the population gets. They get to their checking account and then they pay their credit cards, they pay everything out of this, and that's essentially their savings. They don't have anything past that. But what I'm gonna show you here is that you're gonna have things coming out of your checking account into different areas, and this is what's really gonna be important. You're gonna have automatic withdrawals into various different areas.
Stay tuned to see the setup you should follow after setting up your account. Remember, your checking account is your most important hub and a tool to manage your finances. Bonus tip: sometimes depositing the check may be a huge hassle while one needs to travel to a bank. Unfortunately, this sometimes leads people to rely on payday loans, but this is the absolute worst thing you can do. For every $100 you borrow, you'll be charged $10 to $30 on it per month. While this seems relatively normal for interest rates, it becomes a huge problem over the long term. For instance, if you owe this interest rate over the course of a year, you're suddenly ending up with a massive interest rate of 300 to 500%, which, not surprisingly, will demolish any signs of wealth growth. Step number 2. Create an emergency cushion of $2,500.
It's enough to keep the little things from kicking your butt off the get-out-of-debt wagon. Because when we first started this stuff years ago,
Once you've set up your money to go directly into your checking account every payday and mark dates on the calendar, you want to save up to $2,500 as quickly as humanly possible in a separate savings account. This money will be used as a small emergency fund in case something unexpected happens, like a flat tire, some other car repair, a medical expense, or something in your home breaking. This money can either totally stop you from going into debt, or at least lower the amount you have to dip into debt depending on the emergency. The top money-related issue negatively impacting mental health is insufficient emergency savings, with 57% of American respondents reporting a major negative impact on their mental health. It is absolutely vital to save this as soon as possible, because you and your money will be in danger if you don't. You may have heard back then that $1,000 was enough, but that's not the case anymore. With inflation and prices on the rise, the minimum you can get away with is $2,500. This will help you stay out of danger and keep you on track to building wealth. But why should you keep this money in a separate savings account? Firstly, it's because you will clearly remember this is money you shouldn't be using on anything other than an emergency. It's not a personal savings account, but an emergency savings account. Secondly, you don't want to invest this money because it needs to be both stable and liquid. In other words, you want to know that you can access this money whenever you want. If you put it into the stock market the day you need it, the market may be down and your $2,500 may only be $1,500, which would be a horrible feeling. If you don't have a separate savings account, open one today, and tomorrow, focus as much of your net income on saving $2,500 as soon as possible. Put as much as you can from your paycheck into the savings account until you reach $2,500. Once you have reached that $2,500 in savings account, you'll want to start putting 10% of your cash into the account going forward. We will explain this more in detail later, so please keep watching. Step number 3. Pay off your high-interest debts. There are typically 5 major debts that any person has, which are credit card payday loans, student loans, medical loans, mortgages, and car loans. However, only credit cards and payday loans are usually very high-interest debts, and they're the first you want to get rid of. These are the debts that are literally robbing you of any riches you deserve. Typically, they're on average rates of 18%, so the only people that are getting richer are the people that you have to pay interest rates while you stay broke.
Well, you never want to owe money you can't pay. I'm basically against debt. I mean, I think the average individual will live a lot happier life if they certainly ought to avoid credit card debt. I mean, there's no reason in the world to pay 18% for money. I can't make money paying 18% for money. So why should people up and down the street, do that? So avoid debt. If you have savings, and it's a good idea to have them if you can have, just buy index funds and just buy them every month.
Now, you may feel like paying your debts should be the second step for what you do with your paycheck, but here's the problem. Imagine you pay off your debts, but an emergency pops up. You may have almost cleared your debt, but now you're up to your neck in it again because you didn't have an emergency savings to protect you, starting the vicious cycle again. So, pay the minimum debt while saving for emergencies. Therefore, only after you have saved at least $2,500, start aggressively paying off your high-interest debt. The hardest part, however, is staying away from your credit card once it's paid off. For example, let's say you get paid and you forget to save some extra money for gas. This causes you to dip into your credit card to fill up the tank, which totally defeats the purpose of clearing your credit card. The best way to avoid this is fill your gas up as soon as you get paid, regardless of how full or empty the tank is. Step number 4, invest your money.
Controlling the costs and living simply, and that was the secret. How much money? Warren and I had tiny little bits of money. We always underspent our incomes and we invested, and if you live long enough, you end up rich.
It doesn't have to be hard to get rich, as Munger shares here. After you saved up $2,500 and got rid of high-interest debt, it's time to start investing. In the beginning, you'll want to invest 15% of your income, meaning every $100 you make, $15 of it goes into investing. There are so many ways that you can invest, and all of it depends on what your risk appetite is. As a start, you should open up a separate checking account that's specifically for any investment you want to make. So, whenever you get paid, 15% of your income is automatically transferred into this account, so you'll know that it's ready to be invested and not accidentally spent on something unnecessary. After that, you have several options. Option number 1, risk-averse and guaranteed return. A safe option that also provides guaranteed returns is to pay off your low-interest debts. This is essentially anything that's not credit cards and payday loans. For example, let's say you have a student loan debt that's 5%. If you pay this off a year early, then you're basically making a 5% return on investment because you don't have to pay 5% of your money to anyone anymore. In other words, you effectively make back 5% of your money. There are two famous methods for paying off your debt. The first is the debt snowball, where you focus on paying off your lowest amount of debt, not the interest rate. Big supporter of this method is Dave Ramsey.
You list your debts, smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one. You attack the little one with a vengeance.
So, if you have a couple of loans, one for $5,000, a second for $300, and a third for $8,000, and a last one for $700, you'll want to start paying off the $300 and $700 loans first. What this does is make you feel better about yourself for accomplishing something, which eggs on you to continue paying off the rest. The other method is the debt avalanche method, which will save you more money by paying off less interest, but it is not as emotionally rewarding. This method focuses on paying off the debt with the highest interest, as it's the debt that's taking the most money from you. Option number 2, higher risk, higher return. If you tend to tolerate higher risk, consider investing in the stock market in the way that is recommended by Warren Buffett.
And that is to consistently buy an S&P 500 low-cost index fund, keep buying it through thick and thin, and especially through thin, because the temptation gets, when you see bad headlines in newspapers, maybe to say, well, maybe I should skip a year or something. Just keep buying it. American business is going to do fine over time. We'll just buy an index fund and never look at a headline, never think about stocks anymore, just like you would do if you bought a farm. You just buy the farm and let the tenant farmer run it for you. And I pointed out that if you'd put $10,000 in an index fund that reinvested dividends, and I paused for a moment to let the audience try and guess how much it'd amount to, and it would come to $51 million now.
This is how you do it. Instead of creating a separate checking account, consider creating a brokerage account that will automatically invest a portion of your paycheck, either weekly or monthly, depending on how often you are getting paid. By informing the brokerage of the amount to invest, that is 15% of your paycheck, the money is automatically invested without you having to do anything. This way, you won't even notice the money being invested as it goes straight into the stock market, creating another investment account for you that works passively to build your wealth. Call your bank or set up a brokerage account online. Then request that the bank set up automated monthly purchases of the Warren Buffett recommended S&P Index Fund, which is the Vanguard 500 Index Fund ETF with symbol ticker VOO. Alternatively, you can set up the automated monthly purchases online yourself. Now, watch your money grow over years. If you are not a professional investor, this is the best way to invest your money long term, according to Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. If there's one takeaway you should remember from this entire video, it's to invest in VOO on a monthly basis for the next 20, 30, or 40 years. Don't overthink it. Just do it if your intention is to build wealth and retire securely. Every honest banker will always say this is a great solution for most of the people. Step number 5, boost your savings.
You're working in something where you're living off your paycheck from week to week. You want to have a little cash around, and you certainly don't want to have a credit card that's maxed out or anything like that.
While you're allocating 15% of your money for investing, you'll want to simultaneously save 10% of your money to further boost your emergency fund. You'll want to save up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. So if you spend $3,000 a month, you'll want a minimum of $9,000 in your savings account. Just in case you forgot, this account is the same account that you already have $2,500 saved up in. A good rule of thumb is to remember regarding how many months of expense you should save is this. If you're single or living with someone else, generally 3 months is okay. If you have a family, then aim for 6 months as it's a safer choice. If you really want to protect yourself, then you can always go above 6 months, but try to stay below 12 months, as it becomes counterproductive due to inflation. So, in simple terms, for every $100 you make, $10 should go into this savings account. And having this fund will protect you from both minor and major emergencies, plus make sure you come out of it unscathed. After arriving at this stage, you can congratulate yourself because it's already a great accomplishment. You're paying off your debts in the correct order, saving and also investing. You're in the 5% of people who are on their journey towards financial abundance. Let's move to the final and crucial 2 steps that will accelerate your savings. Step number 6, spend on the right things.
5% of the people set goals, and 5% are inordinately more successful in their lives than the other 95%. Well, guess what? 5% of people do a budget. 95% don't. Well, and 5% are inordinately successful.
Right.
There are 2 major spending points people have. There are needs and wants. The priority should always be your needs, so let's tackle that first. After you've saved up $2,500 for emergencies, paying off your highest interest debts, and now keeping 10% and investing 15%, you should have about 75% of your paycheck left. The hardest part is figuring out how to use the rest of that money. Firstly, you need to understand what's a need and what is a want. While this seems like common sense, the majority of people's financial situation says otherwise. A need is something you need to function, and a want is something you can do without. The difficulty arises in the overlap. For example, you need a car to get to work, but you don't need the newest Mercedes for it. Or you need a phone for daily life, but you don't need the latest iPhone with the most expensive plan. It always pays off to remember why you need an item. Buy needs, avoid wants until you reach financial stability or even better financial independence. Number 7, monitor your spending.
I think it's crazy to be spending 105% of your income, and I think that leads to all kinds of problems, and I get letters from people every day that have experienced those problems.
You need to monitor how much you spend the 75% of your net income so you do not end up overspending. There's only one way to really deal with making sure you don't overshoot your income, and that's the budget. So many people are afraid of budgeting because it feels so restricting.
Okay, so number 1, when you do a budget, it is not a straitjacket. It is you telling you what to do. Okay, so it's a guardrail. It's don't run off the road.
The truth is that it only feels that way because you have the wrong mindset. Here's how to change it. You need to realize that getting control of your money, getting out of debt, creating a great life for you and your family, or getting to financial independence and freedom is the end goal of budgeting, not punishment for entertainment. A budget should make you feel free as opposed to restricted because you gave yourself permission to spend on this and that. What's the simplest way to budget? Grab a pen and paper or open a notes app on your phone and list your spending categories. We're listing here the most common spending categories in everyone's budget. You can pause and write them down. The first is housing, like rent or mortgage payments, utilities. Next is food, groceries, eating out. Then transportation, car payments, gas, maintenance, public transportation. Then insurance, like health, auto, and home. Next up is debt payments, like credit cards, loans. Entertainment is another category, like movies, concerts, hobbies. Next up is personal care, haircuts, toiletries. Clothing and accessories come after that. Gifts and donations, and then travel. Then, now think about how much you spend on each category. Write it down and stick to it by monitoring the amount spent after each purchase. To gain a grasp on the freedom budgeting provides, take advantage of free resources online, like budgeting apps. A good one is created by Dave Ramsey. It's free and it's called Every Dollar. I have a link in the description. These are the 7 steps for what to do with your money when you get paid. Leave your comments below and I'll see you in the next video. If you want to turn your finances around and finally grasp financial freedom, you should watch this video.